and welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho, and this one is a YouTube exclusive. It's a Solstice special. We'll be talking about Sunspot 2794 and lots more. We'll be wishing you a happy solstice and so forth. So won't you join me? As we've got tons of stuff to talk about. We'll also be putting your viewer chats up on the screen and so on. So leave us a comment. And so first of all, lots of stuff going on from a celestial perspective. You can see Comet Erasmus there up in the upper right. You can see Mercury down there below the coronagraph. And we've got a new sunspot having rotated into place now. Sunspot 2794, it's quite large. It's quite in charge. It's only an alpha class. It doesn't have any opposite polarity umbrae, at least not that we can yet see. So here's a composite image of our local yellow dwarf. And you're looking at actually three different wavelengths there, 335 angstroms, 193, and 94. And you can see that sunspot just rising over the southeastern limb. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now up to 84. And no surprise there as we see sunspots. So there's the 1 year graph, courtesy solon.info, of the 10.7 centimeter radial flux. And there's the about 11 year graph of it. You can see how proportional that is to the sunspot number progression. By the way, there's also a minor geomagnetic storm being forecasted here by NOAA, as there is a coronal hole wind stream just striking. So here's a close-up of Sunspot 2794 as it rotates into view there. Again, it's only alpha class. It is quite large. The umbra is about the size of the Earth. And we've got more great views for you here on our Helio Viewer Movie section. First, let's take a look at the view from Lagrange Point 5 here at Stereo A. Stereo A spacecraft located at Lagrange Point 5. And here's the view out there. I would expect to see a coronal mass ejection here on the far side of the sun, as that plasma is quite extended out into the outer corona there. Very low possibility for Earth-facing coronal mass ejections at this moment, as we see quite the opposite on the Earth side. More evidence of coronal holes, like that massive coronal hole in the north, which is sending protons in our direction right now. In fact, they've just arrived a couple hours ago. And here's a close-up of Comet Erasmus. It's just a zoom-in of the view that we started out the video with. And again, if you're viewing live, please leave us a comment. Thanks for tuning in. John White and Nabo J and Pull My Finger. There are your comments. And it's almost time for the solstice. Only a few more minutes of autumn remain. Before we move on, I'd like to thank our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. Please consider becoming a patron at the $3 per month or higher level, as the $1 and $2 tiers will be eliminated at the end of the year. So starting New Year, the first day of the year 2021, the year of accountability, the $1 and $2 tiers will be gone. So if you're considering becoming a patron, do it at the $3 per month or higher level. Again, thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content. It's patreon.com/smashamash. And those patrons are listed in order of lifetime contribution, by the way. So here's another image of the sun here. It's the full disk view in 304 angstroms. I think I might have over-zoomed as I've cut off the poles. And you can see that extremely bright area there in the lower left. The magnetic region around Sunspot 2794. And thanks to Brett for telling us what number it is. Now, when we look at the different wavelengths of the sun here using the SDO instrument like this, 304 angstroms is a reference to a very, very narrow band of ultraviolet light. So somewhere in that band, what you're looking at is photons here. So you've got, if you're not a physics person, you've got photons down here with a very long wavelength. Those would be low frequency radio waves. Then you've got shorter wavelength up here, which would do things like heat up the hydrogen in you, microwaves, yes. And then you've got infrared light, which is the heat from the sun. Then you've got visible light, which is this tiny little portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that your eyes are able to detect. And then you've got higher levels here, ultraviolet light, which is what we're viewing when we see the different spectra, such as the helium spectra in 304 angstroms. So that's what that is. And when we look at very narrow bands, you're looking at only the emission spectra of ionized helium. So helium that wants an electron, helium that is missing one of its electrons. And then, of course, you get into higher levels of radiation there, X-rays and gamma rays, the shortest wavelength and highest energy state of the electromagnetic spectrum. Getting back to images of the sun, here's a 171 angstroms view. And we're only about 5 minutes from the solstice. Again, thanks everybody who's tuned in. Please tell your friends and foes, science noobs and science pros, about the channel. And let's move into some different material here real quick. We will show you the rest of our Helio viewer movies at the end, including some close-ups. By the way, if you haven't checked out our playlists, please do so at youtube.com/smAsho. Now, this is a live stream exclusive. However, this is under the playlist of daily space weather. So if you want the URL for our playlists, it's youtube.com/smAsho/playlists. And one of the playlists is the Smash Lights segment. We've been doing regular live streams, just talking about whatever random news. We've actually categorized those as news and politics, where these daily space weather videos are actually science and technology genre. I would also invite all of our viewers to visit our website, smashomash.com. You can find all of our social media links there underneath that arrow. Shout out to Smash staff for setting all of this up. Look for changes coming soon to this. And you can also find links to the smAsho forum and the stores. Welcome to Neo Renaissance. Thanks everybody who's viewed our site. Today's featured products are the All Things Matter Black. And look for more different clothing and other merch to be coming out soon as well. Look for big changes coming in the stores. So there's the All Things Matter Black. We've got a bunch of different products there, such as the first merch we've ever made. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch, and don't forget to enter the promo code smAsho on all orders through Christmas to save 10%. Thanks to the Smash team, etc. Perhaps pick up a Blaze Orange Smash team shirt, because nothing says "don't run me over or shoot me" like a Blaze Orange shirt. So we've got products there featuring condensed matter as well as Deneb. We even had a contest. Somebody won a free Deneb shirt. Shout out to Atmanhotep. Take a photograph of yourself wearing the shirt, and we'll feature it on one of the videos. If you enjoy the content on YouTube, please press like and subscribe over there. We need your help sharing the content. We actually briefly made it to 1,700 subscribers, and then we mysteriously lost about a dozen subscribers just after hitting the 1,700 mark. So this is a sort of a normal thing that happens on YouTube. No real surprise there. And we don't particularly consider 1,700 subscribers a milestone anyway. So yeah, thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Please share on your social media. Press like and subscribe. Press the notification bell so you actually receive notifications. Now let's talk about the solstice, since we're very close to the solstice. Only less than 2 minutes away. And the solstice represents the moment when the sun's rays are most directly aimed at the southern hemisphere. The good news for the northern hemisphere is the sun's rays are already returning. So we've only got 1 more minute and 15 seconds of autumn to remain. What will you be doing with your winter, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, your summer? A lot of people in the northern hemisphere go on 200-mile bike rides on the day of the solstice, as it is the brightest day on the summer solstice of the whole year. And we'd like to be the first channel to wish you a happy solstice. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again for leaving comments, etc. And again, the sun's rays will be returning, so this is already the darkest day. And while it gets colder throughout the next 2 months in the northern hemisphere, that has to do with the heat latency of the oceans. So it's actually already getting, in about 25 seconds, we'll actually see the planet getting brighter in the northern hemisphere. The southernmost part of the Arctic Circle will start to see light again, starting in the next day. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and happy solstice, everybody. Cheers. Welcome to winter, welcome to summer, happy solstice. Let's move on, as it's also an interesting day because of the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn. So make sure you catch that this evening. As soon as it gets dark, look in your western sky, as Jupiter and Saturn's great conjunction will only be a couple hours from setting. So get to a location where you've got a low horizon if you don't have a low enough one to see them. And we'll show you at least what the view will be like from Allentown. So I like to use in-the-sky.org. And there's the peak conjunction happening today, the same day as the solstice. So that's always exciting. Here's the layout of the solar system right now. There's where things will be in a week, approaching another full moon. And there you can see the way Jupiter and Saturn are lined up from the perspective of the Earth. And here's in-the-sky.org. It's what I like to use for my sky charts, my star charts. And I'm just going to animate this here. I've drawn in the ecliptic. You can put in the galactic plane if you like, the ecliptic, and so on. And I'm going to allow this to advance to show you what the sky will be doing above Allentown. So you can see Venus rising there before the sun, Mercury very close to the sun, which is why it's visible on the LASCO C2. And then you can see Jupiter and Saturn rise together. And so as soon as it gets dark tonight, as soon as it even starts to get dark tonight, go out and look in your western sky around the ecliptic. I've set an alarm for myself. Great idea, Nebo J. And in Lehigh Valley, you'll need to get a glimpse of the Jupiter and Saturn great conjunction by about 7 o'clock. So they're 1848 Eastern Standard Time. Places like New York, Allentown, etc. will see the setting of the great conjunction. A thing that only happens every about 800 years. So, and by the way, no massive natural disasters happened the last time we saw the great conjunction. Again, thanks everybody for leaving us comments. Happy solstice to Anthony and Mary and Pull My Finger and Nebo J and Catherine Abramson and John White. Cheers. Thanks for tuning into the live stream. And we always stream at the equinoxes and the solstices. Today just happened to fall on the daily space weather video, so it's been integrated. We often stream at Twitch. Maybe download the app. Thanks to our new followers over there. Hopefully you came over to view the YouTube Live exclusive solstice stream. Today's Smash Lights will be featured after this video. And let's do a cosmology segment real quick. We're going to roll a random number between 1 and 1031 with our quantum dice, our quantum die. And today's random number is 327. Let's see what object that is at the Neil Gorell's Swift Bat X-ray Observatory. 327, it's a fast Chevrolet motor. This one is a galaxy, NGC 3227, which stands for New Galactic Catalog. It's a Seyfert galaxy, which means it's sort of an active galactic nucleus. Perhaps we'll get a great view of this. These are the X-ray emissions from galaxy NGC 3227. And here over the past 30 days, you can see it's quite consistent, as well as over the past 15 years. Quite a consistent X-ray source of that safer active galaxy. Let's go take a look at it on the Sinbad and on Aladdin Light. So there it is on Sinbad, NGC 3227. Great view of that active galactic nucleus, which is why the core of the galaxy looks so bright. Let's look at it in some extra wavelengths here on Aladdin Light. And here it is in X-ray from the Chandra. There it isn't in X-ray from the Chandra. Let's see what it looks like in infrared. There's Galaxy 3227 in infrared light. And that's a shortened cosmology segment. We don't want the video to be too long, as we've got additional features toward the end of the video to show you the rest of our Helio viewer movies, which feature close-ups of the new Sunspot 2794. So next, looking at the real-time solar wind here, and we just saw the uptick in the solar wind density, an indication that another coronal hole wind stream has arrived. Although it's been very short-lived, it only lasted a couple hours and then dropped back off. Don't be surprised to see that pulse back up again. That does not look like the full effect of that very large coronal hole in the northern hemisphere. And we've also got close-ups of that saved for the end of the video. We also do see a shift here in the BT-BZ over the last 6 hours. That's the top pane. BT is the total field, which is all the way up to 9. And the BZ in the northern portion of the range. Current solar wind density around 8 protons per cubic centimeter. Current solar wind speed, 369 kilometers per second. Not a significantly elevated anything. So, looks like a little pulse ahead of the coronal hole wind stream. And yesterday we forecasted it to be about 36 hours from yesterday's video, which gives me another 12 hours of leeway before my forecast becomes incorrect, something very unlikely to happen. So here's the KP index. And the NOAA forecast is for a minor KP5 event from the coronal hole wind stream. We'll keep you posted on that. Current KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism at 2. Next, we'll look at the Geospace Movies. And here's what's going on in terms of the density in the magnetosphere. And this extreme tilt that you see here is going to start to level off as we approach the spring equinox for the northern hemisphere, autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. This is 4 hours of data, and you're going to see the density drop off here. This visualization shows you low density in white, lighter colors, and high density in blue. And I'm drinking coffee with cocoa and cayenne pepper. Once again, I like my food so hot that I have a religious experience while eating, or drinking in this case. Next, the pressure. It's 4 hours of data. We see significant induced magnetism on the Earth also. We'll show you that in the next slide. There you can see fairly high pressure there, and then it drops off as the density drops off. No surprises there, and you can actually guess what the solar wind will be looking at those images. So here are the ground magnetic perturbations at the poles. And we view this daily. We don't always view the polar view daily, but we look at the data daily here since we're living through a polar excursion. And here's the global view. So some significant induced magnetism. And for you new viewers, the net North Pole is someplace around here. But we've also got a North Pole over Siberia and one over northern Canada. And the South Pole has left the Antarctic continent and is somewhere up here south of Australia. And that's why we view daily. And you see some major perturbations there over the Canadian North Pole. If you're in northern Canada, you might see some aurorae. Unlikely to see any in the southern hemisphere, as there are very few people on the Antarctic continent. No major aurora expected to be triggered, at least not with this scenario. Perhaps if we see a G1 geomagnetic storm, we'll see a little bit more of that. Let's continue with the data. The proton flux is flatlined here over the past 3 days, and we expect that to continue as we don't see any coronal mass ejections. We've seen a small uptick here in the X-ray flux. Don't expect any major X-rays out of Sunspot 2794 unless we see an opposite polarity umbra trailing it. Currently, it's only one large umbra, which makes it less likely to produce large flares. There's a 3-day chart of the GOES magnetometer, looking a little bit spiky there, and we see an arc jet moment, which the data shows us because it could show erroneous data there because of plasma coming out of the thrusters of the GOES 16 spacecraft. Next, we'll look at some magnetic data here from the National Sunspot Observatory. And the Earth is currently in the North Pole current sheet. I wouldn't be surprised to see that current sheet grow here, or the South Pole current sheet, shown there in red, shrink, as that sunspot is quite large. And again, thanks to all of our viewers for leaving comments, etc. Let's put those up on the screen. And again, happy solstice to everybody tuning in. Mary says Kilauea is erupting. I was not aware of that. Thanks for letting us know. Let's get back to some more magnetic data. Here's the line of sight coronal hole field plot, which shows you the sun's B field in blue. And we were just looking at the Earth's B field in the magnetic perturbations images. Now we're looking at the sun's. And you can see that large coronal hole. And the protons are almost here. I think some of them may have arrived. We may be seeing some kind of a double pulse here. Again, that coronal hole in the north is quite big. And here's a different line of sight field plot, which also shows you the magnetogram of the sun. You can see a bunch of active regions there moving into the setting mode there, as well as some pulls on the B field happening from Sunspot 2794. And lastly, we'll look at the magnetic field plot of the solar corona, which is quite a chaotic atmosphere. Nothing too exciting happening there. Next, we'll talk electrons. And we see some minor charging hazards there over places like Mexico. But they're only minor charging hazards. Here's the 1-year chart of the electron flux. You can view that yourself at solon.info. And now NOAA is oddly forecasting an uptick in the electron flux. So for the next 3 days, the forecast is for an uptick. I would disagree. I would say there's going to be a downtick as the coronal hole wind stream arrives. And then the next day, we'll see an uptick. But while the coronal hole wind stream is here, I would expect to see a downtick in the electron flux, not an uptick. Not sure where they're getting that information. But in any case, there's the 3-day chart of the GOES electron flux measured by the GOES 16 at the F ionosphere layer. Next, we'll look at a slice of the whole air column here, all the way from the thermosphere where your GPS satellite would be located, at the bottom of the outer Van Allen belt here. And we see some small anomalies there over the southern hemisphere, right there, over Antarctica, and some slight anomalies there over North America, as we've been seeing lately. No real surprises there. And we just like to bring up this image each day to show our viewers what we're looking at here. And you can see the inner Van Allen belt, the outer Van Allen belt. It's showing you where the GPS satellites are located. That's sort of the upper thermosphere there. Also showing you where the International Space Station is inside, at a lower altitude than the inner Van Allen belt. So here's another diagram. Just keep in mind this one's in miles and this one is in kilometers. the GOES 16 endeavors to make its measurements at the F ionosphere layer, which we'll look at next. Here's a visualization of the ionosphere. And we've been seeing a bit of an anomalous ionosphere, especially in the southern hemisphere the last few days. We cover it daily on the Daily Space Weather. That's a full day of data. Not particularly charged up here, but a little bit anomalously charged in the southern hemisphere. You can see some blobs of charge up there at nighttime, and we typically see that associated with low levels of electron flux. There is the current image coming in at 10 o'clock Universal Time. Next, we'll look at volcanoes. I'll press refresh. I don't think Kilauea is on the list, but I believe you, Mary. Next, okay, so here we go. Here's what's erupting right now. Kluchevskoye on the Kamchatka Peninsula is producing a 25,000-foot ash plume. Sakurajima exploded, 6,000-foot ash plume there. Suwanosejima, 4,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego is exploding. Don't pole vault the caldera. It could be unhealthful. It could prevent you from pressing like and subscribe on YouTube and sharing the content on your social media and pressing the notification bell in hopes that you'll actually receive notifications when we make a video. Sangay is also exploding. 20,000-foot ash plume there. I think that's an uptick at Sangay down in Ecuador. Revenador also exploding, 16,000-foot ash plume there. Sabancaya exploding, 25,000-foot ash plume there. Please don't attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera. I don't see anything about Kilauea, but again, I do believe you. Let's move on. We did see a significant earthquake of a 6.3 magnitude at Japan yesterday, and if you follow us on Facebook, you may already know that. Facebook.com/smAshomash. And I've actually got a few accounts there. There's also a group called Entropy Busters. Perhaps join that group as well. Let's see what we got. Some deep quakes, such as this 4.0 magnitude at 176 kilometers below Bolivia. Below Bolivia. That happened at 13:04 yesterday. And then about 2 hours later, we see a 4.8 magnitude near Tonga at over 560 kilometers depth. The 6.3 magnitude quake, the largest of the past 24, occurred south of Sapporo at 17:23 Universal Time. Let's take a look at where that was located. There's the location of that. We'll zoom out. And go back to the list. As the 7, 8, and 9 magnitude earthquake lull continues, we're even seeing a drought in 6 magnitude earthquakes, despite seeing that 6.3 magnitude tremor. It's a real earthquake. We also saw a 4.3 at depth over Chile, as well as a 2.7 over Kansas. Here's another very deep quake over under Fiji, a 4.4 magnitude at 555 kilometers. Another deep quake at Chile, that one coming in just before, 20 minutes before midnight approximately, a 4.9 magnitude at 110 kilometers. And we see a bunch of quakes there under Hawaii, including a 4.4. Let's zoom in on that. That one just came in at 8:36 Universal Time. And that one is indeed under Kilauea. So that's a significant quake there. And I just want to check on this one here. There's one, let's see, that's the shallowest quake at only 300 meters below the surface. That one a little farther north, directly under the Kilauea crater, though. So there you go. Likelihood of magmatic activity very high there. Corroborating what Mary said about Kilauea now erupting. let's continue on to look at some meteorological stuff. And I'll put your chat back on the screen. Again, thanks everybody for leaving comments. Wishing everybody a happy solstice. It's Solstice Day. Cheers, and thanks everybody for tuning in. So here are the jet streams of the eastern world. Doubled up jet stream continues, making for some cold days in south central Australia, as well as a convergence there. Here are the jets of the western world, and we continue to see a doubled up jet stream over North America there, as well as some extreme bends in the jet stream, such as this one here, making for some cold temperatures in eastern South America. Shout out to our eastern South American viewers, and all of our South American viewers, and all of our viewers, period, such as Bruce Minas. The first rule of Batman is tell people on YouTube that you're Batman. He doesn't mean Batman, he means Batman. Next, looking at lightningmaps.org. It's where I like to go when I hear thunder. We don't really see any terrestrial lightning here, although we did see some over Florida and in the southern Atlantic. Here's the Go 16 lightning mapper. And shout out to our Floridian viewers, such as Mothra, my favorite accountant. Next, looking at windy.com to see a massive low pressure system there off the southwestern coast of Alaska. We're going to advance this into tomorrow and see where pressure cells are expected to go via the GFS forecast. And here's where we expect things to be at 12 noon Eastern time. A low pressure system there over North Dakota. And here's now, and there's tomorrow. And that low pressure system near Alaska turning into a triple by noon tomorrow. A little bit anomalous as the earthquake drought continues. Next, we'll look at the U.S. Doppler radar right after I check the life of the stream. We're already 32 minutes in, and we're continuing on. It's the longest daily space weather video in quite a while. Here's the U.S. Doppler radar map, one of our value-added services. We don't always do meteorology videos, but I've got a record of batting 1,000 as I almost perfectly forecasted the weather for where I'm located. And once I start doing this full time, I'll start doing custom meteorology videos for various places where severe weather's happening, such as that freezing rain, wintry mix sort of a thing going on in northern Illinois. Wisconsin getting hammered with snow once again, as well as northeastern Minnesota. And let's see what's going on in the cloud layer. There's the cloud layer. And here's the water vapor map. Back to the cloud layer. And back to the water vapor map. Here's me vanishing. And we don't need to do any zoom ins. We just have to remind you to stay tuned as we've got a bonus of features, including the close-up of the solar intensity gram. We'll show you the latest high-res image of Sunspot 2794, as well as its magnetic fields, a regular feature of the daily space weather, which is a regular feature here at the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. So there's the colorized magnetogram. Here's the magnetic field situation of Sunspot 2794. Again, we only see one umbra. Here's a close-up of Sunspot 2794. Again, that umbra is about the size of the Earth. But since it doesn't have any opposite polarity umbra, you can see there's only one polarity there. Yes, there is a magnetic field mixing happening there, but there's only one polarity. There's only one umbra, is the point. So there's the close-up of that. And let's get to our Helio viewer movies and close this thing out, as we've got some extreme close-ups. And let's see how the field's been playing out. There is the magnetic field scenario for Sunspot 2794. It's been pretty stable here over the past 24 hours. Again, not that high of a likelihood of major solar flares or coronal mass ejections at the moment. Here's the same area in 304 angstroms. Great view of that. And great a view to view the content. It's a great view, and it's great a view. Get it? See what I did there? Yes, I'm a published poet. It's true. It's true. To quote Kurt Angle, it's true. And here's 131 angstroms. Give that a minute to initialize. There we go. Great view of another ionized state of iron. When you heat up iron hot enough, it loses electrons, and this is the 131 angstroms wavelength of ultraviolet light. Casting some light on the subject of heliophysics. A whole bunch of different spectral states of iron on the surface of our local yellow dwarf. Let's not forget about this coronal hole in the north. Here's a great close-up of that, and that's where our protons and our geomagnetic storm will come from. It'll be a result of induced magnetism. So a great view there in 193 angstroms. Another UV emission spectral state of iron. Here's Sunspot 2794 and 94 angstroms. And that's all she wrote. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Happy Solstice. Don't forget to press like and subscribe. Don't forget to share on your social media and press the notification bell. You may even see notifications. Tell your friends, foes, science noobs, and science pros about the channel, as we've got a lot more work to do over here. And you ain't seen nothing yet. We've barely gotten started making content. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, and may that solar wind be at your back.